Hello, everyone. My name is Jonathan Morales. I am one of the co-organizers for the Latinx Games Festival, and I'm a game developer from Watsonville, California. I'm here to bring you the audio panel for the Latinx Games Festival with these amazing folks, Estefania, Alyssa, Jasmine, and Maria. And they'll introduce themselves really quickly, and then we'll get right to it. So whoever wants to start.
Oh, okay. I'll start. So my name is Estefania Romero. I did a diploma in game audio with Francisco Cerda, who is the cool composer from Jamestown. And I got my first paid gigs in game audio, doing both composition and audio design in 2018. And since then, I've been like sort of doing game audio and front-end development because it's kind of hard to just live on game audio here.
All right. My name is Elisa Menes. I do quite a bit. I am actually currently a music teacher at a college and at a middle school, but I also have worked in game audio since 2014. I've worked on Just Cause 4, Black Hole Epiphany. I've also worked on some titles, some non-commercial titles for brands like Comcast and Logitech. And yeah, I run a video game music orchestra here in New Jersey called the Montclair Gamer Symphony Orchestra. And that's pretty much me. So education and game audio.
I guess I'll go. I am Maria Jose Felix Vega. I'm a composer and sound designer for video games, television, film, and other media. And I currently write music for video games as well as music for full-length films for Lifetime and Hallmark, and interactive music for children's books. And you know, I do a little bit of sound effects, but composition is my main focus.
My name is Jalito. I'm from Argentina, and as some of my co-panelists, I have a pretty academic background. So I first started my path as a composer as a member of a collective of composers working and playing, performing, composing chamber music. Then I got into electroacoustic music, and that's when my passion for timbre started. And I think that's the reason why I love being a sound designer so much, because I'm so much into the quality of sound itself. And I've been working in the games industry for the past 4 years. I'm co-founder of 2 studios for which I am a one-person audio department, basically. And I'm right now freelancing for a studio in Sweden called Bird Pulse and a studio from Poland called Plastic Studio.
Sure. Thank you so much, everyone. So I guess all of us have done audio. I've done audio a little bit, and I was going to be doing audio, but that shifted, and now I'm a technical artist at a studio. So surprising things happen, which is cool. Anyway, so let's get to the first question, which you already introduced yourselves with your experience, and you already defined kind of. I guess, can you go over your specific roles, like where in your whatever positions that you have, like whether it's composer, sound designer, audio director.
Sure.
Same order as before, I guess.
Yeah, whatever order y'all would like.
Yeah, we'll just do that. Okay, so I'm mainly a composer, but I like usually also do audio design because I mean sometimes the budget is very like short, so you have to do that.
I've definitely done a little bit of everything, mostly composition, but I've done a lot of sound design as well, a little bit of implementation, and actually a little bit of voiceover work too. So quite a bit of everything, I would say. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I mainly do composition, sound design, but I've also done a little bit of implementation. I do audio testing, and I've also done music education.
Awesome.
At this point, I think I have more experience working as a sound designer, but I also do a lot of implementation, and I've done some voiceover things as well, and working with voice actors and actresses is super cool.
Awesome. Yeah, y'all have a wide range of experience. That's awesome. So this is a difficult question, and I hope if y'all can't answer it like specifically, that's totally fine. But what is your favorite musical composition? And this can be in games, ideally in games, but if it's not in games, that's totally fine too. And what makes it so good for you specifically?
Wow.
This is
The hard-hitting
heck of
questions
a
right at the
question.
beginning.
Yeah, you waste no
Who wants to
time.
go first?
I mean, I can go if you want, I guess.
Do it.
Okay. So yeah, I was thinking about this question for quite a bit. There's a lot of compositions out there. It's just way too much music. But I wanted to like talk about like a piece of music that's specific to like a really emotional moment in a game. So I'm a huge fan of like Nintendo, and specifically I love the game Kid Icarus Uprising. Came out in 2012, criminally underrated, I say. But I actually wanted to talk about this piece of music called Destroyed Skyworld that plays when the main character Pit, he comes back to his home, he finds it destroyed, he finds that his closest ally and best friend, the goddess Palutena, is like gone nuts, and she's slaughtering all the humans that they vowed to protect, and everything's just going to hell here. Pit has to team up with like one of his enemies to like, try to do something about this. And he knows he might have to kill Palutena. It's like really heavy. And the music that plays while like he's going through his home and he sees everything destroyed is just so like gut wrenching. I feel like it makes such great use of like leitmotif. So there's this beautiful theme that runs throughout like this arc of the game that like is really representative of like all like the chaos and the pain that has been caused. So that theme is heard in the horn in like this very somber tone. And it actually touches on the Locrian mode, which is very like not often used in composition, and it's done so well that you don't even notice it, but it's like it's there. It's such a great piece. It's so emotional. It like really underscores like the pain that like Pit is going through. But it's like that typical Nintendo game. Well, maybe not typical, but it's like the kind of typical Nintendo game where it has like the kind of like overall lighthearted feel, but there's like so much under the surface, and you really hear that in the music. So, Destroyed Skyworld is definitely up there.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Any takers?
Who wants to
For this
go
super
next?
difficult question.
The toughest question.
Okay.
I guess I can follow. I also spent quite some time thinking about this question, trying to find a possible answer, and I think I had two main candidates, and if you agree, I will mention them both. Answering only one is so hard. I think that it's partly because as composers for video games, I think we try to listen to a very wide variety of music, and then we end up listening to so many things that we love so much that it's very hard to choose one piece of music. But a piece that really impacts me every time is the making of the cyborg right at the beginning of Ghost in the Shell. It just feels, it's just strong. I don't know, it's impactful, and I think it's just in a very sweet spot between something tribal and something very primitive, but also mysterious. I think it's a perfect mixture of different layers that belong to different worlds, and they just combine beautifully together. And then a personal favorite, but just because it connects very well with my musical sensibility, is Suma by Arvo Pärt, especially the version for strings. It's just beauty at its most.
Thank you. That's intense. that's some good ones.
I guess I can follow.
Sure.
So, as everybody else, I just spent a lot of time thinking about this question, and I really don't think I have one favorite musical composition, but there are definitely some that I always find myself looking back to, just because I really like, but each one of them brings a different thing to the table. And I want to mention just one of those. And it's not a video game piece of music, but it's a classical piece of music that I think can get applied to a lot of genres, and this is Satis Gypnopathis. Because just the first time I heard them, the beauty of the simplicity, it really stuck to me, and it really speaks to me about how sometimes less is more, and how you can create something really big with, you know, not a lot of notes or not a lot of changes in the chords, and just letting the notes speak for themselves. And I really like that one.
Thank you. I haven't heard it, but I'm
I think
done.
I think it's actually in Mother 3. So
Oh.
it ties very
Is
nicely.
it? Wow.
Yeah, I find it
That's
in
awesome.
commercials and TV and film, with sometimes I'm watching, I'm like, oh, there it is.
Nice.
Yeah. Well, it's really hard to decide because it's a broad topic, but I'd say that oof, maybe like if I think about bands, Tori Amos and maybe Massive Attack, like great bands. And if I think about something more orchestral, I really love the Gladiator soundtrack. And if I think about video games, there's a few like I really like Austin Wintory's work in Journey. Like Final Fantasy Tactics has a great soundtrack as well. It's like I listen obsessively to this soundtrack. Like it's a bunch of loops, but it's simple but beautiful. And also I like Yoko Shimomura's work. She's done so many things in different styles, and it's like you can link emotions. I mean, you can think of different games that she's worked on and like instantly have strong emotions. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. It reminded me, like, when you were talking about emotion, it reminded me of, have y'all heard the soundtrack for Nier? The game
A little
Nier?
bit, but yeah.
It's so good.
Really good.
It's
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah, I would say that was probably my favorite. I don't know what piece, but the entire soundtrack's pretty great. And I guess to go along the same theme of super difficult questions to answer,
Yeah.
what video game represents the moment that you, or like I guess what video game, or yeah, what video game for you made you want to be a composer, if it was a video game, and if it wasn't, what moment in your life led you to that? Or it can be a series of moments as well.
Hard.
Who wants to go first?
Okay. I'll go first. Final Fantasy VII. This is the one that many people have as well. It's because PlayStation was something quite revolutionary because it introduced real audio. I mean, you could use music that you heard on the radio. You could compose more realistic stuff. Yeah, there's like two moments from Final Fantasy VII at least that are quite emotional, like the Ares moment. I won't talk about it further if someone hasn't played it yet. And also One Winged Angel. It's quite a shocker. I mean, I still remember the emotions I felt when I got to that part of the game, hearing a choir singing. Oh my God, that was, it gave me chills still to think about that. Yeah. So before I wanted to be a video games composer, but that moment really was like, oh my God, I wish I could do that like every day of my life. But then I didn't because of life. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII.
Thank you. That's a good one.
I guess I'll go next. So I do want to say really quick though, One Winged Angel is an incredible piece. That is such a mind-blowingly awesome piece. For me, it was like really growing up as a young kid playing NES games. So I would play with my older brother a whole lot, and just being like as young as like 3 years old, and just like hearing all that music was, you know, I don't think there's ever been a moment in my life where I wasn't like musical or singing something or doing some kind of like musical thing. I would hear like music from like Hip Tanaka as a kid, those NES games. Like I'm bringing it back to Kid Icarus, of course. Like that soundtrack just blew me away even as a kid. Metroid, and you know, like this music from other games too. Like I was big into like Bionic Commando, Star Tropics, like all of these games, and just like those tunes are like so ingrained into like, you know, my memory, my childhood, and that's like really what I took away from the games, you know, more than anything was the music. You know, like I said, I've always been musical. There's always music playing in my house as a kid, stuff like the Beatles always playing. I learned how to play the saxophone as a kid when the thing was like bigger than I was, and I was just really, really into it. And, you know, yeah, and then, you know, one day, post college, you know, I was kind of like, I was working like at a job I really didn't like and everything. And I was just like kind of depressed about like not being able to, you know, make music and everything. But I just started finding my way, you know, into doing it. I started going to like game audio meetups and whatnot. I actually arranged music from Kid Icarus for the Gamer Symphony Orchestra at the University of Maryland. It got it like performed. I was just so over the moon, and it just really inspired me to keep going and, you know, do what I did. So there you go.
Well, for me, also I grew up playing Nintendo and Mario, and just that moment when Mario gets the star in Super Mario, and then the music changes completely. It's just like, whoa, because you control it, right? You decide when that music is gonna play or not play if you don't get the star. But I don't think at the moment I realized like that there was somebody that did that behind the scene. It just happened. But then I started playing Ocarina of Time, where music actually plays a bigger role in the actual video game, where I started to see like the possibilities that this represented, right? And that just made me very, very excited. And then I mean, I don't have much more to say, but you know, just playing a lot of games and seeing where music is going is very interesting.
Well, I was playing a lot of instruments when I was a kid as well, and my house was also full of music all the time. And I don't know how, but at that moment, my piano professor realized that I was into music composition even ages before I knew that, and she would let me play things that were completely out of my reach, just because I was curious about them, because maybe the composer was Russian, I don't know, and it sounded scary, and I wanted to get into that challenge. And I remember that at my last piano recital at music school, I played a piece by Nobuo Uematsu at Samarkand, and I think that was the first time I played something by a composer that was still alive and composing, and that shocked me, because I was like, oh man, I realize now that you can do this. This can be your job. And then I started thinking about it more and more. I eventually got into grad school, and when years after I joined the game dev community of my city, just out of curiosity, they encouraged me to talk to people, and I wasn't able to find other composers here who were into games. So I decided to take a risk and email the contact account of Supergiant Games. And Darren Korb replied to me from his personal email, and he was extremely sweet, and he encouraged me so much to keep going. I think that that was the moment when I decided that this was possible and that I wanted it. Yes.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so much. I don't know if anyone has other stuff to add to their stories.
Yeah, like
That's
I
awesome.
didn't
Go for it.
I
Sorry.
didn't talk anything about my background, but like so about that thing I said that I never thought that I could get into game audio. It's like since 2002 I've been in bands, and like I'm a part of the indie scene here. And so after like playing live a lot and releasing a few albums, like what else is there in music? So this is how I like start getting into game audio, and wow, it's really exciting what you all have said. It's like I can relate to everything you have said, and it's like something hits you like, oh, I really need to do this. This is so much fun. I can't believe that it's still like it amazes me that the game reacts to what you're doing, and it's like, but how does that work? Like what did the composer have to do to make it work like for every case? That is really exciting.
That's a perfect segue to our next question. Unless you have something to add, Maria.
Oh, yeah, I was going to say that I also didn't add a lot of my background, but I started studying to be a singer, actually. And then as once the years passed, I realized I like to do composition more. So I started to take piano, but it was mostly classical piano. And, you know, everything kept evolving and kept like snowballing into different stuff. And I decided to go into film composition, and I studied my master's in film composition, and we had one class for video games there. And I really liked it because we looked into, you know, implementation and FMOD and how like layers and all of that. And it was just very interesting. So I started to talk with the, you know, the audio community for video games. And, you know, I started to like that and work on that. And that's how I ended up here.
Thank you. Yeah, it's still a perfect segue. Awesome. So y'all talked a little bit about implementation, and we can cover this in this next question. And this can be for sound design and for music. So yeah, can you describe your process on how you compose a new piece, and this specifically for video games, and what's challenging about composing music for video games, right? What are the challenges that come up when you're thinking about how implementation is going to happen, and I guess your role in that when you're composing? That's a lot of questions. Let me know if you need me to repeat.
No, it's all good. It's all good. Yes, I can go first. Sure. Okay. I think what's really important is to keep in mind is the fact that video game music is oftentimes so much more different than music you just hear, because there's really like no discernible like ending to a lot of the music. So it's really important to keep that in mind as you compose. Like, you are going to write differently. You're not going to really like focus so much on like building and resolving. I mean, you are going to do that to some extent, but you also have to like really understand that your piece has to like be structured in a way that it can seamlessly loop. And I think writing for games too it's a lot of fun because you can like really challenge yourself to think in layers as well. Because, you know, if you're thinking about dynamic audio, you really have to understand that the game, like the music, is shaped so much around the player's actions. So to be able to structure your pieces, and we did this a lot in Just Cause 4 actually, to be able to structure your pieces in terms of like layers and like kind of even like vertical slices that you can like just switch between on a whim, just like depending on what the player does, is so important. So you really have to just like think, you know, I'm not playing a piece for on stage that's like 3 minutes beginning, middle, and end. I'm playing a piece that is dynamic, constantly evolving, constantly responding to the player, because the player is the one really at the end of the day like dictating the audio, you know. So, and it's challenging and fun though. So, and that's it, I guess, for that is. I might come back with more, but you know.
Sure thing. Yeah, absolutely fine. Any other takers?
Okay. I'll go. So I first tried to, I mean, the developers sent me something, like it could be anything from like a small description or maybe some media about their game. And I start to analyze that material and try to get like a sense of which textures we are going to need. So I open a session in Cubase and add a little bit of those, and then maybe start playing around with like some ideas. But sometimes you get a magical moment. It's like, oh, here's a melody that relates to a character or a situation. Like But basically, it's like trying to get the mood right. And then after I have like a few things going on, I start asking about like specifics, like context, like when is this going to happen, and how many times, like for how long will the player be in this situation or stage or whatever. And that I think it's kind of the hardest thing to do, at least in my experience, which is working with very like indie developers who are just starting. They don't have like a very good notion of like how long is their level, or yeah, that's kind of hard because sometimes we will work in parallel and they don't know these specific things, and it's really hard to think about implementation. So like I tell them, as soon as you have anything, let me try to like implement it right away. And although I've studied like how to do audio with WISE, I mean audio implementation, and some audio implementation with Unity, usually like people want to do their own sound implementation, like maybe like an afterthought, and it's like, no, it doesn't have to be like that, because the later, like the later you try your audio in the game, the later you realize how it does work and doesn't work, and you have little time to fix it. So I think that's like the most complicated thing, like in my experience about working in game audio and doing implementation and doing compositions that are just right for that moment.
Yeah, I think that knowing all of those things that Estefania was mentioning is very important, especially the first things that you were mentioning, Stefania. Knowing the tone and how do you want the player to feel at a certain moment in the game. As I mentioned earlier, I've been always very much into timbre, and that's the reason why that's the thing that sounds in my head the first. Oftentimes I have no idea how the tempo is going to be, which chords am I going to use if I'm using any, but I know how I want the sounds to be. It's there in my head. So I just spend time trying to get to that sound, and once I have that or those sounds, I start improvising a little bit in general, trying to get to a first consistent and good Lego block that I can build from. And yeah, I think that as soon as I have that, I switch to implementer mode, and I start thinking about, okay, how is this going to work in the game? I believe that even if you are only making music, it's very important to picture the overall sound of the game, to know how you want that soundscape, the full one, to be, and then work towards that with your music. Yes.
So for me, when I start to compose a new piece of work for a video game, I also look at all those elements that I mentioned. What is the emotion that we want to create? What can the player do that will affect that emotion? How long is the player going to be there? Because that all affects how you're going to treat the music. And after that, what I like to do is I like to gather inspiration. So I look at what has been done in those situations, and I try to see what is grabbing me through it. Is it the melody? Is it the timbre? Is it the chords? What is it about it that I like? And then I start playing with that and with my own personal style. And that's how I come up with the music, but also, like I said, like taking into consideration, like, is it a boss battle? So if the player leaves the boss battle zone, the music needs to end. Is it gonna need a fade out? Is it gonna have an ending? So you have to do one loop and one ending. And I think that's the hardest part of this. You have to take into account all the actions that can be done, and you have to make the music sound natural. like, yes, that's exactly what we expected you to do, and we have a plan for that.
For sure, thank you. Oh, you want to add something, Estefania?
Yeah, I want to say that we forgot to mention that there's lots of iteration, ideally, going on. And I wanted to ask one of you a question, like, have you ever done a piece like with little or no iteration, and they just have to implement it like that? How does that work?
That's a really good question.
That's a tough one. I think the only piece I've done with like little to no iteration was the ending theme for Black Hole Epiphany, and Dave Gilbert, awesome guy who created the series. He was like very like open about like, yeah, make the song your own, like do your thing. And I actually played through the entire series like over the course of like a weekend, just snowed in, so I had nothing, else to do. I just binged the whole series and I wrote the song, and yeah, went to the studio and recorded it, and it was just like, there it is, it's great. So that was probably maybe the only time, because a lot of other times, especially as Stefania, like we were talking about with the development process, for sometimes the game developers don't even know where the game is going in some cases. Like the music very much is iterated on a lot as well. So yeah, that's probably the only time it was just like kind of one and done,
I don't think I've had that. I always iterate a lot. Yes.
Yeah, I'm gonna agree with Jasmine. I don't think I have had that.
It's the nature of games, I guess.
Yeah.
That's a really good
Can I
question.
add
Yeah. Oh yeah, go for it.
one more question to that? It's like, and how easy is it for you to compose when the developer doesn't really know what his game or her game or their game is? It's like when the developer doesn't know, and it's like you can do whatever you want. Is it easier to do that, or is it easier to like have a very clear concept in mind?
Well, I want to say that even though they don't know what they say they don't know what they want, but when you show something to them, they definitely know what they want. So if you show to them and they were like, no, this is not what I was thinking, and then they send you something, and at least that has been my personal experience. So I always like to just insist on like having some examples of, or just some idea of what they want is usually very helpful. Because one of the hardest parts of this is that you want to reach an audience, you want to say something with your music, but since everybody's experience is different, what sounds sweet to some might sound scary to others, or what sounds adventurous might sound busy or messy. So every piece of music can bring something different to whoever is listening to it. So it's just really helpful to just have some base of what they want, at least for me.
I think that it's great to have lots of creative freedom. I do believe that having clear guidelines and nice references is very, very useful. And it's fantastic when you can have both, right? Because it's not like having a reference is limiting your creativity necessarily. But in the cases when the studio or the developer isn't super certain about what they want, I think it's very nice of them to let you be a part of the development process. So if there's a discussion about the environment happening, it's nice to invite the composer there, because then you can be a part of that world building, and then you go back home and you start composing with that vibe. And that's sort of a way of unifying that thing that Maria was pointing out, that what's sweet to me may not be sweet for someone else. I guess that's it.
Oh yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. I feel like that's I feel like great music in a game is definitely born from collaboration, not just like amongst the audio team, but like cross I don't know, the word is escaping me, but like, across everyone who's working on the game, you need this collaboration. And even if the developer isn't sure what they want, it's important for us to be able to have a dialogue and ask questions, and you can teach a little bit too, show some examples, and I think it's always good practice too to draft up a few different little things here and there, like a few little snippets, like here's 10 seconds of one idea, 10 seconds of another, 10 seconds of another, and you can share those ideas. Don't be afraid to share those ideas, and really just spark and inspire a dialogue, and you will collaborate with the game developers, and you will come up with like a really just the perfect song for the game. But it's definitely from collaboration, I'd say.
Yeah, I think it makes it really hard when you don't know what you're doing, or you don't know what you want rather, and they don't know what they want, and then that's just a recipe for disaster, usually. Yeah,
it's like
oh, go for it.
what you're saying. If you don't know what you're doing, then you're going to have to iterate and rework a lot more than if you something really magical happened once. Like a developer gave me a text. It was like 2 lines maybe, and I just got it. Like this game designer is so great that she was able to write everything down in like a couple of lines, and I did something, and she connected right away because she knew exactly what she wanted. So that's really important.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Yeah, I guess with regards to I know collaboration was a big theme amongst that answer, and I think it's really important, right? Usually audio is brought on at the end of a project, right? What do y'all think about that? Do you think audio should be brought in sooner into the development process, and then why? I'm sorry, I'm deviating a little bit from the questions we have planned.
All good. I mean, audio is just so much a part of the game's world. Like the game's story is not just conveyed rather through what you see and the gameplay, but it's the audio too. It's all working together to convey a story. So I feel like the sooner you can get the audio sorted out, the better.
Yes, I agree. I feel like if audio is brought in at the end, they give us such a small margin to work with because everything else is already defined. So there's not much that you can say in order to enhance the experience because it's already done. You would need to change the design of the game, or you would need to change a lot of things if you want to make a bigger impact with the audio. But if audio is brought in from the beginning, and audio is in the meetings, then they can be like, yes, in this world, let's do this, and then the music can do this, and then it's a better experience for everybody.
Yeah, I think it's crucial to have audio people from, if not the very beginning of a project, from very early on. Because also when you have people who have experience implementing sounds, they can bring ideas that may not be in the realm of things that the team thinks about, because they just don't work with those tools. So even if they get ideas from their experience as players or from previous projects, having someone who is a specialist in the subject is always going to enrich the process, the creative process. And then on top of that, I agree completely that there are things that you can convey with audio, that you can convey only with audio without having to get any other factors involved into that. So you can make your narrative more strong or complex through audio. And that's only going to happen if you give the audio person time to develop and connect with the project.
Yeah, so in my case, it's like, I think ideally the audio person or the audio people should be involved at the beginning of the project, because sometimes the questions that you raise can change the course of development, like maybe in tiny ways or in big ways, or even help them conceptualize better what they are doing. But like in Chile, although the games industry is growing very fast, it's not profitable for everyone. So something that usually happens is that small teams with some or little or no experience are confirmed for a specific project that then applies to get some funding, and they have like a very short window of time to bring this project into light, which is probably a year or so. So in that case, it's better to bring the audio person or people or team at the end of that process. Why? Because it's like the whole game design, development, and everything is done at the beginning when people don't know exactly what they want, and you have no opportunities to implement things, and the iteration is going to be very slow. So it's going to be like a waste of time and resources. So in that case, it's better to work, like do the audio work at the end. Maybe like work a little bit at the beginning, like on the conceptualization phase, but then do the bulk of the work at the end, because you are going to have some specific things to look at. For instance, animation. It doesn't really make any sense to create some audio assets like, oh, this is the sound of something crashing. Yeah, but what thing is going to crash and for how long and when? And it's like you will never know if that fits or not until the end. So in that case, it's better to get some videos or maybe being able to implement it. So yeah, but ideally it should be at the beginning.
That is such a good point. Yeah, I always thought it would have been best to just bring on audio person as soon as possible, just because there are a lot of factors to think about when developing or designing a game and an experience. But that's like I never thought of the allocation of resources as a potential barrier for that, and that's a really good point that I never thought about, even though all the teams I worked on didn't have any resources. Cool. Yeah, that's some great answers. I wanted to still deviate a little bit more, and audio is this clump of sound design and music, and they're both different in their own ways, but they're both similar. Music can be used for certain sound effects, right? And then sound design itself can be musical in certain ways. I guess for you all, what is that difference? And yeah, what is that difference for you? Where is that separation? And do you think it is important to know one or to know both if you're going to be going into audio and games?
Okay, so
yeah, I can repeat my question because I kind of stuttered a lot.
Yeah, I think I'll do my best answering your questions. I think the main difference for me, at least, is the tool set that you're going to use, like maybe different hardware, different plugins. Sometimes they are shared, but mainly it's the tool set. And also, I mean, even if you want to just do composition, you're going to be asked at a moment to do both. It really depends on at what point you are in your career and how you got into that, and if you're working with indie developers or in a huge company. And well, Eduardo Ortiz Prau, which is an awesome person in audio, once told me that he was doing like both at one point, but then he kind of specialized in sound design, and that really worked for him, like to get better and more jobs.
Definitely learn both, especially if you're just getting started. Especially if you're working on indie games too. When I got started working on indie games, like I was just a composer, and I, didn't know how to do sound design, and I didn't want to call myself a sound designer. But I noticed that in indie games, like a lot of the games that are being made are kind of short form, arcade style puzzle games and whatnot, where they'll have like maybe 1 or 2 tracks, but there'll be like 30 some odd sound effects that you need. So it's such a crucial skill to learn. And honestly, like for me, learning sound design opened me up to so many more game projects, and it got me my job at Bloomfield College as a sound design teacher. So it's paid off so much, honestly. I would say too, like sound design, sound effects and music are very similar in some ways. If you think of a sound effect as like a little composition in some way, you think about like in music, you're layering different elements, you're creating like this whole like sonic soundscape, and every sound effect is like that too, where you have like this layer, you have like this contour, this shape to it. If you kind of think of it in that way, it does start, coming naturally to you. So yeah, definitely learn sound design if you're wanting to get into the games. It's really important.
Yes. I'm sorry. Oh, okay. Yes, I think the difference is it's very minimal. Definitely learn both, like Alyssa was saying, because that happened to me too. I was just doing composition, and then a client asked me, "Do you also do sound design?" So that's just how I started. You have to try to do everything audio related, especially when you're working for indie games. But it's very hard because music, it's like a lot of different notes, right? You have this system of musical notes in the traditional sense of speaking, where you create this composition, and sound effects can sometimes be not actual notes but recordings. But then I also think about some games that use like chimes, and that is a musical note, but it's not music, it's sound effect. So I think there's kind of like they share a lot of characteristics, and it's very hard sometimes to define which ones are which. But yeah, so you have to learn to do both.
I think that most people coming to or wanting to do audio for games have a musical background. I honestly don't think I've ever encountered someone who is into sounds and has never played an instrument, for example. So I think that it's a matter of whether you spend time exploring the sound design, I don't know, role or not. And I definitely think it's worth it. You might find, as I did, that you love it and you just want to sink in hours and hours doing that. And I used to have this professor at university who talked a lot about micro composition when building sounds, and I love that concept. I think it ties very closely with what Alyssa was saying, and that's my mindset when I'm approaching a new sound. It's like, okay, this is a new micro piece, and I will really be careful about every single part of it. It's not like a bloop and that's it. Even if it's a bloop, I will just be very, I don't know, careful and put a lot of love into every single tiny part of that bloop. And yeah, I believe that it's just very, very much worth exploring. Even if you then decide to spend all your time working as a composer, but it won't hurt you. It will probably open more doors for you, especially with indie devs. So it's always great to meet more people and to collaborate with more people.
Every bloop needs love, right? I just want to add, I can't stress enough how many times because I've worked on like some like educational kids-based games too and whatnot. I can't stress how many times I've just like I needed some kind of sound effect and I've just opened up like my East-West orchestral sounds, hit harpless, and said, all right, there's a sound effect right there, or how many times I've just done like a little like a perfect fourth of doo-doop, boo-doop, boo-doop, like those. So that's, yeah, it happens a lot.
It's funny. I've just remembered the Brian Eno micro composition for the Windows operative systems. It's like people identify it more like I mean it's a sound for them, but it's actually a musical piece that it's both and yeah. And in Emily's Away, you have like tiny like it's an ambient sound going on, but it's like the music as well. Yeah.
I'd like to add something. Can I? It definitely is great collaborating with other audio people, but um, having the chance of completely shaping the soundscape of a game. So knowing how your sounds are going to be when you create the music, and knowing how the music is going to be when you create the sounds, and maybe working all of those assets in the same project, as in your DAW, all at the same time. That's a very unique thing, and I don't know, I think it's a great experience to have, even if only once.
Yes, you have to take into consideration that the music and the sound effects don't clash into each other. And if you're the person doing both, then you're all set, you know. And if not, you have to talk to the sound designer, which is also good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, balancing dynamics, especially when so many things are happening, where there's like, I don't know, there's so many different things happening on screen, right? And there's so many different sounds for everything, making sure that doesn't clash with music. And if there's an important sound that needs to play for like an audio cue, right? That doesn't clash with any of the music. So thank you so much for all of it. Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say we had to really be so mindful of that, like in Just Cause 4. Because like the primary sound effect you hear in the game is just gunshots, and that exists in this like very like low mid-range register. So a lot of what we did was in our mixes, our musical mixes, is we made space in that register so those sounds wouldn't get lost. So that's something important to keep in mind too. Whether you're working with a sound designer or you're the sound designer and the composer, is to create sonic space in your mix, in your EQ. Just pull back on, like, it's gonna be like low mid usually, I think. Really depends though, but like pull back on that register, or not register, that like a frequency range where your sound effects are gonna live. So
Wow. I just remember a moment in The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, when you have like the music that Geralt carries in his life. It's like he's carrying the music. It's weird. So you have the music from that specific place, and you have like a band playing, and you have dialogues, and you have audio from people who are talking in the back. It's like it must be hell to like get the EQ right and the setting right without like I don't know. It must be really hard to do that.
Yeah, I agree. There's always so much, like so many things happening under the hood with regards to audio, right? And as a player, you're like, oh yeah, I mean, like it's from what I've heard, and y'all can correct me if this is wrong. If the audio isn't getting in the way of the player, if the player's not like, oh, this sounds weird, right? Then you've done your job right. If it fits into that world, and if the player notices it and appreciates it, that's also really great. Um, um, it's just, yeah, like if everything's working and the player doesn't really notice it, it's a good thing. I'm just repeating myself. I don't know what I'm saying.
no, it's
That's fine.
true.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Oh, I would like to add something. Today I read something that I thought was preposterous, but at the same time I can relate to it. It's like PC Magazine, I think, wrote an article that said like, which games do you play with the sound turned off or with the music off? Or it's like I was appalled because it's like oh my God, that's one part of the game that you can shut off completely, and you will miss part of the experience of the game. And it's really weird, but at the same time, I can relate because sometimes, I don't know, you want to hyper focus on something specific. What do you think about that? I was kind of shocked.
Well, yeah, I think that music and audio can also give the player a lot of cues to know if they're going the correct direction. So yeah, I think it's weird. I'm very interested in reading that article.
Yes, I agree with Maria. it sounds shocking, and I'm also interested in reading that. But yeah, audio is definitely an amazing source of information for the player, apart from all of the expression that it can convey that we've talked about extensively. So it's a shame to lose that, I think.
A game could tell you, oh, go left, the thing's over here, or it could play something for you and like kind of like guide you and give you like a little visual cue too, like give you that little like that hints, you know, which makes it just feel like much more like satisfying experience.
This would lead perfectly to another question I have, but I'm going to wait a little bit on that with regards to accessibility. So instead, I'll deviate a little bit. I'll go back to I guess implementation. In y'all's experience working for indie developers, how important do you think, if it's important at all, to know how to program when using Fmod, like middleware, like Fmod, Wise, or just implementing straight up into Unity, or Unreal, or whatever engine you're using? For you specifically, like, has that been important? And would you say it's important for folks to, if, I guess depending on what they want to do, whether it's like technical audio or just the design itself, like how important do you think that is in with regards to your roles that you've had?
I think that it's always good to know more, especially if it's about things that will help you, so tools. In that sense, I strongly recommend learning. I prefer working with middleware because I'm no audio programmer. I do love the technical sound design stuff, but I'm no audio programmer. So even though I can work my way around Unity a little bit and script some tiny things, it's not what I do. So I think that it's very good to be curious and to learn things constantly. Knowing how to implement your sounds, or at least understanding how logic works and the things that you can do with sounds, will help your creative process, and that's invaluable. And it's key to be transparent about the things that you know with your team, because if you don't know how to program, they will assign you a programmer that can help you with that, and that's it, problem solved.
No, that definitely makes a lot of sense. Like, in my experience, like I haven't had to program too much in games, but it just helps so much to understand how the programming process works. And that way I can like communicate with the coder. And it's also important to understand like how dynamic audio works. So, you know, I'm able to tell the coder, hey, so at this point in the game, when the player goes here, we're going to fade out this track and then crossfade in the other. You know, so, and I actually at one point did end up like setting up something in Fmod, and then I was talking to the coder for a game, one of the games I was working on. He's like, oh, I can just do that. And then just does it. And it's great. Okay, cool. Awesome. But, you know, it's there if you need it, I guess. So, yeah. It is definitely really good, though. And it can never hurt to learn as much as possible about the game development process. I just feel like learning, too, just really makes communication with coders and everyone else on the team a lot easier. And just makes for a better product at the end of the day.
I agree with both. I think that learning middleware is far more important than programming, but also learning programming doesn't hurt. Because I have been asked to if I can program in Unity, and I can't. I'm just a composer, a sound designer. But it's definitely helpful because as one of my teachers said to me, you want to take your music from concept all the way to the game, because somewhere in the middle something can get lost. So maybe if you're talking to the programmer and he just doesn't understand what you want, then it's a constant battle to get what you envision in your head, and it's not happening. So if you're able to do that yourself, then it's all done, you know? So yes, definitely, if you can learn programming, it's definitely helpful. And indie games and, well, all games in general need that.
So I'd say that it definitely helps. Like in terms of being able to communicate better with the team, and I mean, you can do so much, if you know a little bit about programming, because at some point the developer is going to be like, okay, I will handle the whole sound manager and whatever. So yeah, I'd say it's good for communicating better with the team, and also not to sound like a foreigner, like here's the other person that is not part of the team. It makes you like fit better into the team.
Yeah, I agree with everything y'all said, especially with Maria, about taking your audio from concept to all the way to like being implemented in game and finalized in there. Just because, I mean, I've done audio on 2 games, and like that was, I mean, that's what I did. Took stuff from concept to like implemented all the way. And I think the folks who it was like for our senior capstone for college, and the folks who didn't do that, their audio ended up losing some of, like their music or sound design didn't end up working the way they wanted it to work, just because they had certain visions, and then the program was like, well, we're calling it in this event script, and it's not going to be called in the exact moment that you want it to, or it's not going to, like, we're not going to be able to add like certain like things or whatever, right? So I definitely agree. I think it can be important. It doesn't have to be, depending on what your role is, but it's like have y'all said, it's important to kind of like diversify that like a little bit and learn how that works. Which leads me to my next question about middleware. Y'all said that knowing middleware is really important. But on that topic as well, I've heard, I personally don't know, but I've heard that sometimes teams don't want to use middleware, and programmers would rather just do stuff themselves. But at the same time, middleware makes the process from getting your concept into the game so much easier. And if you know middleware, it makes that process, it refines the process a little bit more. So I guess how do y'all feel about teams that don't necessarily, I mean, if you're comfortable talking about it, teams that don't necessarily want to take in middleware as potential cost for them, when it makes your life as a composer or sound designer so much easier?
I mean, I feel like the middleware is like, it's mostly there, I feel like, for the audio people, because there's a reason why middleware resembles a DAW, a digital audio workstation, and it's for us, you know. But if a team, I just think it's just whatever they're comfortable with. Some teams might have their own audio system. Some teams, their coder might feel more comfortable just coding it, like the example I cited from my own experience before. It really depends, honestly. And I feel like, if you can use it, great. If not, it's all good as long as you make something work at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, you have to consider the cost of having a middleware in terms of how much you will have to pay, and also how big your project will be if you implement middleware. So if you have a maybe short mobile game, maybe the developer is going to decide not to use middleware, and also maybe you have to do some evangelizing. I don't know how to say that word. Yeah, you have to really sell the idea of middleware to the developers, because they're like, why would I need that? I can do that. I can do that. But what they are not seeing is that they will not have time to do everything that they promised you, and then it will be poorly implemented. The result is not going to be so good, maybe.
Yes, I think that what Stephanie is saying rings very true. In my experience, I feel like the programmers they also want to be in control of their code, and they feel like having middleware is taking that control away from them a little bit. And in Unity they have this loop square that they can just click, and they're like, there you go, it loops. And it's like, yes, but then if you have middleware, you can do so much more. And that's why I also think it's important to have audio from the beginning, because you can start to explain to them, you know, what middleware can do for them, and maybe they start to realize that it's just going to make their lives easier as much as ours.
Yes, I think that in cases other than extremely tiny games, and teams don't want to have middleware in the project, is probably because they've never worked with it before, and they don't need it because it's not for them. As Alisa was saying, it's for us. And I guess you need at some point to have a person to come and tell you, hey, this is very important for me. It's going to improve the sounds and make it be miles better. And I was thinking about what Alisa was saying as well a few minutes ago, when she was talking about the bullet sounds and the gunshots working together with the music. All of those tiny polishing thingies you will do at the very end, once you have all of the sound implemented. So even if you acknowledge and prepared for that while you are composing, you will need a stage at the end of the process to take care of all of that together with the full final mix of the game. And doing all of that in middleware is just so much smoother than in a game engine. That it's just not the tool for that. It's not for you to mix, right? It's just a matter of improving the quality of the sounds.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, go for it. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, and I think it's good to know. I forget the exact amount, but depending on the budget of your game, Fmod is actually free to use. So, you know, teams are kind of on the fence. I think it's like I forget the exact amount, unfortunately, but maybe like you can
I think it's 1,500 assets that you can have, and an infinite amount of events.
Okay.
Like it's a lot.
Yeah.
For most indies, yes.
For sure. So it's definitely worth considering, especially if you fall like right into that like category where, hey, it's free. You know, might as well try it out.
Yeah, that's a really good point as well. Like for anyone like watching, right? Like if you haven't used middleware, Fmod's free. You can download it and start messing with it. I think you can download Wise as well, and mess with that as well. But I haven't done that.
it has a free license as well. I think you can use a little bit less assets, but it's again an amazing tool.
Yeah. Yeah, I like for anyone that wants to get into that, like yeah, Fmod is a really good tool to start with. And like just start learning implementation, right? Cool. Anything else to add to that question?
I'd say that it's awesome that middleware for game audio is built on feedback that they get from people who work in game audio. So it's like new features are constantly being added as we ask them. Like I have never personally done that, but you can like, hey, it'd be cool to add this and that, and it like it moves so much faster than like in an engine. It's like maybe in a game engine, it's not their priority to make audio implementation like easy for us at least.
Yeah. Oh, go for it. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I just want to add that it's not about saying, hey, I work with middleware or I don't work at all. It's not about that. I think that it's good to mention that it exists and it will make your work nicer and easier. But I recommend spending some time together with a programmer and showing it and being there for the person who's new to that tool. I think that it's good for us to be in that mindset of this person is being flexible for me, so I will help.
That is a perfect point, because yeah, it's a bringing it back to that whole collaboration aspect, right? if you're not going to be implementing it yourself, with which definitely does drain a lot of time from doing all the other sound design or composition that you're trying to do, right? Someone else is going to do it, and being there and guiding them through the tool is a great point. Cool. I will ask the next question now. We still haven't gotten to question number 5, but we'll get there eventually. With regards to this is a question. Well, not a question necessarily, but a lot of folks tend to get caught up on what plugins they should use and how many plugins they should buy, and they spent an exorbitant amount of money, so a lot of money, buying a bunch of different plugins, thinking that it's going to make them a billion times better at doing some specific thing. In your professional opinions, how important are plugins for design itself, rather than getting a specific thing that you want to get out of it? Will buying the most expensive plugin make you the best composer or make you the best sound designer?
I just think it's important to learn to use what you have. Like, it's so tempting. Like, my inbox is just bombarded like every 10 minutes, like plugin sale, plugin sale, plugin sale. And it's just like, if I opened up every single one of those emails, I'd lose my mind and not get to do anything with my life, like not to get to make actual music. And just like, you gotta just remember that you can do so much with so little. Like, you can do so much with reverb, and a little EQ and compression. I tell my sound design students that all the time. When I start them out in class, I only teach them those 3 effects, and I kind of like leave the others out for a little while just so they can learn to work with that. Like, plugins wise, I mean, I do have my fair share of them. I think the best purchase I've made was Sound Toys. I combined my educational discount with the Black Friday discount and got like a really sweet deal on them, and they sound incredible. I love Sound Toys. I'm hooked, but I'm pretty good. I feel like I'm pretty set. Like, I don't need too much else, maybe like Isotope too, oh, definitely Isotope is amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, there are definitely some standards that everybody talks about, like Sound Toys and Isotope and Altiverb and all of this that everybody uses. But you need to learn to work with what you have before you make the big leap into, more expensive or more demanding plugins, because they're not going to make you sound better if you don't know how to use them. So definitely just spend some time working with whatever DAW you have. Most of them have, their built-in reverb and compressor and all of that. And once you understand all of that, research all the different ones that are out there and see which one is offering you more. And I think that's the best way to
go. I think that at some point, getting the best plugins you can get sort of turns into a game itself. Like, it's oh, now I have to update my audio interface, and now I have to update my plugins, or I have to get the latest contact VST because they will sound more real, and it never ends really. And I mean, if you have lots and lots of plugins, then eventually, I mean, you can get lost. Maybe you have lots of good plugins, but you don't know how to use them, like Majo just said. And so it's better to just learn to use what you have, and then just move up a level if you want.
Yeah, I definitely agree that it's not the tools, it's what you can do with them, right? So I'd recommend to go to your DAW and just explore and learn how to use the things that are in the box there. And only then, when you know that you need something, go and maybe find because lots of plugin companies give their products for like a trial period. So you can download something for a week or 10 days and explore it, read the manual, play with it, and then if it suits you, you can then buy it and use it for a project. But I believe that if you buy 20 plugins at once, there's no way you are learning how to use them. You will just maybe play around with the presets and be like, okay, that's it, I'm got, and that's been enough, let's go and buy 20 more. And that's not the point. You need to develop your skills.
Yeah, it's insane. Like if maybe you buy a controller like an Arturia controller, you'll get maybe the 6,000 like included patches it has in the mini lab, and it's so confusing to navigate that. And it's like, oh, I'll just use number one, like the first preset you find. Mm.
And I think I'm guilty of that when Black Friday comes over and I see all the, the deals for plugins. I buy like a lot of them, and then it's been a year and I haven't opened half of them.
I think this panel's like gonna like be released at the perfect time, like close to like that time. We can like flash like Black Friday deals coming now, buy your plugins. I would say just get a good reverb plugin to start. Like, I know I use Logic, and the out of the box reverb on Logic it's it's pretty good. I think it could be a little bit better, but like if you can get like a really like a good reverb, that's like a good place to start. Like, definitely don't need like 20 million plugins that you'll probably only use once, Those Sound Toys is great. I love Sound Toys. I could be there all day with Sound Toys. It's ridiculous.
And for anyone, go for it.
Yeah, I was just going to say that sometimes you find yourself looking at one track for a sound effect, and it's like you have 20 plugins on that on that same track, and it's like, okay, let's do some like, does this bring joy, or do I just throw it away? Like you have to be really honest about what you're getting out of each specific process you are adding.
I would definitely agree with that. Like, really know what you want. And it's, again, goes back to like being able to use the tools properly. Like, when you're like making a sound effect or, working on a track in your music or whatnot, like if you, again, you will be there all day unless you like know specifically like, okay, I need to create this like sound effect of a spaceship taking off. It's got to just whoosh on by, and I want like a little bit of like that like kind of reverb, that little like sparkle at the end. I want movement in the sound, so you maybe want like a little bit of a Doppler effect, and I want like maybe some phaser because it's like a sci-fi type thing. It's like if you know what you want, it's like so much easier to like achieve it. Especially you'll know which plugins to go to right away. I mean, you are going to be doing some experimentation, some A/B testing, moving the knobs and whatnot, but it's just so much easier if you know what you want your end result to be.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. And for anyone watching, like a really good tool that's free, it's lightweight, it's like super small, Reaper for sound design is really good. And you can actually run video through there as well. So if you want to start practicing like your sound design or music composition, you can download a video and then just put it into Reaper and then just do over it, and then you can do that, and you can evaluate it, and it's also one of the cheapest tools out there for like the cheapest DAW, which is like I think $60 license rate.
Yeah, something like that. It's great. It's awesome. I think your cat wanted to chime in there, Jonathan.
Oh yeah, we have.
Yeah.
I was like, I don't have a cat, but my partner's parents have cats, so.
You have a cat or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is going on? Yeah, I want to like add to what you said. Reaper is sometimes overlooked, like because it's cheap. But I mean, I think it was last year in GDC I saw a talk about audio implementation for Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and it was all done in Reaper, and it's quite flexible as a tool. So don't marry yourself with like Cubase or Nuendo or Logic right away. Just maybe you can start trying Reaper, and if you like, then just continue with it. It doesn't matter what people say. Oh, this is industry standard. The important thing is the result.
Mm-hmm. You can do so much with like the cheapest tools, you know, the least like expensive tools. There's even sometimes like in my job where I'll use Audacity for certain things, and it works. You know, I still right now, like besides like Isotope, like one of the best noise removal tools I've ever used, and it's great for just like, hey, I need to fix the sound really quick. I need to like, you know, trim it, fade it, something like super duper quick. Like, you know, you're in and out with Audacity, so like don't write off tools just because they're, you know, inexpensive or whatever.
I completely agree. Audacity is a really good point as well. Like if you want to start off, Audacity is really good. Reaper is really good. And in addition to Reaper, it's super customizable. So with along with the same lines of programming, if you want to get into doing like I think they're called patches, right? It's not patches, is it?
Yeah, you can write
Yeah.
scripts. You can
Yeah.
write scripts for it,
Yeah.
and you can make it do all sorts of crazy stuff. You can definitely customize it a lot.
And if your mind is already set in getting Cubase, you can make it look like Cubase.
I can't believe it's not Cubase.
Yeah. So if anyone's interested in testing something out, Reaper is really good. And if you haven't used Reaper, it's pretty cool. That's what I use. Cool. I guess we'll finally move on to question number 5. For you all, how was the transition from going to composing music in a studio to working at home? And what roadblocks popped up, and how did you overcome it?
I mostly worked at home. I've been independent like for my entire game audio career, so I'm just kind of used to it at this point, I guess.
I also.
Oh,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I stepped on you. Don't worry.
It's okay. You go.
Okay. I work from home as well, so I think that the lockdown impact wasn't as big for me, thankfully. But I don't live by myself, and that means that during the lockdown, I've been surrounded by people all the time, and that part is new. So I had to, I don't know, develop my patience and my tolerance, and also learn how to be very communicative about my needs. I think that whenever you are sharing a space with someone, it's good to be their needs and try to talk till you find some sort of middle ground that works for everyone.
Yes, I've also always worked at home as an independent contractor or an employee, and I have my studio set up at home. But with the pandemic and the stay-at-home orders and everything closed, like Jasmine was saying, I have people that are around me that were not here before. But also, when I finish work, I can't just go out and go to a restaurant or go to the movie. So I'm always at home. So in that sense, it has definitely been a little bit more challenging because it's tempting that you're always home and you think, oh, I'll just respond to this email very quick. Or, oh, I can just turn on my computer and send this file, even when you're not working. So having those clear limits has worked very well for me. Like I'm working at these hours and not after that. That's what has worked for me.
So this room right here is my studio. So I've always worked from home, and the main difference is that like there's other components to like working in game audio, like just getting together with developers and just having a beer or a cup of coffee or whatever, and just talking broadly about your game. Whereas like in this situation, you are forced to do Zoom or Hangout meetings or just use Slack, and sometimes maybe like some short face-to-face interactions are way better than a wall of text and um, iterating like through the computer. Maybe you just go to someone's house and it's like, oh, maybe you could do this, and like it's faster and better, and it's easier to connect maybe. Yeah, but that's like a specific thing that I'm missing.
We all had to learn how to use Zoom. Well, I didn't use Zoom before the pandemic, so.
So for anyone watching, you can, if you want to work from home post-pandemic, become a sound designer or composer for video games, and you'll be set. Cool. Did y'all have anything to add? I think I saw someone on mute. No. Okay. Cool. And then this one's pretty intense. Pretty intense in the frame of it's hard to answer. What does the future of composing music for video games look like in your eyes? And are there any genres or themes that you would like to explore in games? So I guess let's separate that into two questions, actually. What does the future of of composing music for video games look like for you all? Where do you see it going?
I mean, I feel like there's no limit to what kind of music you can put in a game, and if you just like look at games, you know, as long as game music has been a thing, you can find music in all sorts of genres, from all sorts of genres. It's really incredible, like what you can do. What I would like to see, honestly, like, is not so much maybe like pushing limits musically now, but I really want to see just like the people who are making game audio. I want to see like, you know, more diverse faces in game audio, more people of color, more marginalized genders, you know, there's all sorts of people, maybe even people crossing over from like other careers into it. Just really want to see like the face of game audio like diversify and grow, and you know, so I think everyone should get their voice out there, you know, so that's what I hope to see.
That's super important. I definitely agree with you, Alyssa, and I think that it's very important for all of us as a full game dev community to strive and just make everything to make that happen. But yeah, in terms of music, a little bit more specifically, I think that games as a medium have been evolving so much in the past few years that I believe I see I see them turning into something a little bit more similar to what we are used to seeing with films. So maybe start distinguishing into more dramatic games or more I don't know, documentary-like games. Those are categories that we don't think about when we think about games, and I believe that it's something that would start to happen in the next few years with the development of it as a medium.
Yes, I think that it would be great if the future is more diverse. I would love to see that. And in regarding to the technology, I was thinking about how VR and AR are being used a lot in games right now, and how that is affecting music, because music can now be full surround instead of just like stereo, or you know, it has like another depth to it. So I think that's something that's very worthy of being explored. And also technology is using a lot of voice-driven devices and applications, and the way we use that with music to respond to your voices, it's just a new level of interactivity that I think it's very interesting. And you know, I want to keep seeing how the technology is going to be shaping the games and how music is going to go along with it.
I agree with everything you have said. I would really love more inclusion in game audio, and I think that sort of comes with accessibility to, I mean, in terms of having the right tools to do it, because at the beginning of times you had to program game audio, it was really hard, and then I don't know, when Tipton came along, you had to learn how to do that, and those have made it really easy to get into, but still there's lots of barriers to break down, and then maybe everyone will be able to get in game audio. Also, thinking about what Majo said, like yeah, VR and immersive audio is a thing that will continue to grow and develop technically. I mean, on a technical level, and maybe I don't know the limits between music and like sound design will fade more and more because if you can get an immersive experience out of soundscapes that don't necessarily rely on music, maybe you will not use music on many occasions. For instance, when cinema started, like music was the whole thing, like a piano man, like doing the whole soundtrack, and then when we used to watch cartoons when we were little, the audio effects were done with orchestral tools and stuff. And so I don't know, maybe music will not have the same role as before.
Yeah, those are all great points. Yeah, I feel like this question, like we definitely haven't reached like the end of evolution of music at all in video games, right? It's still going to continue evolving, but I guess technically, like it's like in the past there was like 8-bit soundtracks, right? And now you can have a whole orchestra playing an entire music's like OST, right? Like, so we've gotten to that point, which is great. And there's still so much more to discover, right? Like we don't know what it's going to be like. I can't even begin to think about what it's going to be like. For me, I think, I mean, I don't know why I'm answering the question, but I'll answer it anyway. For me, I feel like not necessarily composing, but more on like the technical end. I feel like there's a lot to still grow on that end, and how we approach, I guess, implementation of stuff. Because even with all the tools that we have right now, there's still so much more that implementation could do to evolve composition and sound design. And I feel like a lot of games and a lot of like specifically like Hideo Kojima, he tends to like pull a lot from like movies and TV shows, and be very influenced by that. And I feel like games have this interactivity, right? And there's already games right that like you do an action and it plays a sound effect. Every game does that. And then there's games where like you do an interaction and you can do musical things based on your action that you take. But there's also like, I think there was a video that I saw that was referencing Uncharted, where like the piece was playing and it was reaching this very intense moment, and pretty much like every time the player hit like the enemy, like with a punch, like ideally you would hear some sort of like percussion instrument every single time you did that. So it's sound design and it goes in with the music, and it's this perfect mix of interaction between sound design, music, and the player. But it wasn't implemented in that way. Like there's certain things that you have to do in order to like, oh, if it's hit at the specific moment in the specific part of the piece, it'll play this sound or play this percussion instrument. I don't know if there's any workaround for that right now. Yeah.
I think it's pretty interesting what you just said, and it just made me think that there's a couple of music shoot 'em ups coming up. So it has something to do with the possibilities of audience implementation. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think if I've played Super Mario Odyssey at all, you can go into, you can like transform into different like enemies or go into like different things. And when you go into the power lines, the sound effect for traveling through the power line actually matches the music, and it changes with the music. So like it's already there, and they already set it up so it's musical in nature for that sound effect to like just change along with the music, and stuff like that's pretty cool. But I think that's one of the first times where I've seen something like that, I guess, so blatantly just up in front of your face, like, hey, yeah, this sound effect is changing as the music changes. But I haven't seen it anywhere else that I can think of. But I'm sure it's happened. It's just I haven't seen it. I don't know if y'all had other stuff to add to the future of composition of video games. This is a pretty intense topic.
It really is.
Yeah. I guess to go along the same lines of the future of composition and sound design in games, where do you see accessibility for audio going in the future, right? Because I mean, like, what's how I guess that's a different question. I'll still ask it. Have you ever had to make your audio accessible to folks that may have a disability who may be partially deaf? And is that any sort of like concern when you're designing? And do you see that being more of a concern as accessibility becomes more of a concern in game development? So for example, like let's say someone can't hear a specific frequency, but that frequency is very like important to your game. Have you ever had to think about that when working on audio for games?
I think it's first of all extremely important to just raise the awareness of how important accessibility is. It's crucial that we all consider that when designing. And I'm sorry, background sounds. I'm sorry. I'm working on a project right now where I want to consider as many accessibility options as possible. So I've been investigating that subject recently, and some things that I had never considered are, for example, having a toggle to turn the overall sound into mono, because some people just have their hearing compromised in one ear, but the other works perfectly well. So they need to be able to hear everything. So if your game has sounds in 3D, they may at some point miss some information if it's on the wrong side. So that's one thing I have never considered, and it was super, I don't know, evident when I read it. It's like, oh, that's a very simple solution, and it really doesn't take me a lot of time to add that option in a menu. It's just you put a toggle there and you just tie that to a function in your middleware, and boom, that's it. And you can include so many people there. So I think that yeah, it's important to consider it, and it's all about making your game very easy to customize for people to shape it to their needs, because like they're with hearing disabilities, it's not like you have 3 typologies and you can be ready for that. Like everyone is different, so you need to give the people power to adapt the game to their needs.
I think it's important too, like especially if you have like an exploratory type game, to you know, if you can implement or have the developers implement some kind of like visual cue, like, you know, maybe on the HUD, you know, maybe like put a little like color or something, or a little like a little like not obnoxiously bright, but like a little flash of light, just to be like, hey, enemies over here, something's going on over here, like, you know. I think that would be I think that's also really important to do as well, just like trying to like cover all that ground. You know, and then in like terms of like toggling, you know, especially if you have like maybe like a dialogue heavy game, if you can toggle subtitles on and off, which I think pretty much every game does this now, is it's super important to be able to do that.
I think it's super interesting what both of you are saying, because I never thought of the stereo and mono sound either, but I definitely agree that accessibility should be used more in games, and I haven't had the opportunity to use it. But I think that, like Alyssa was mentioning, closed captions are very important, but also descriptive captions. So like I was saying, audio can give you a lot of information, like maybe a drone starts when you're in a bad territory, and then just having some visual that goes along with the music that they can toggle on and off, it's great. So it's something that you need to work with the rest of your team to make sure that the user has a lot of options depending on what they specifically need.
I think, yeah, that having as many toggles as possible would be like the best scenario possible. On a personal level, like I have difficulties processing audio. Like if I hear a crowd and someone is talking, it's really hard for me to focus and it gives me a headache. So I wish sometimes that I could like EQ or like maybe lower the volume for those situations. But yeah, audio should be as customizable as everything you are able to see or interact with in video games. Like that would be the ideal thing to do. Maybe have your own mix as a player, and I don't know. I haven't seen um, something that allows you to equalize your video game yet. That would be really helpful.
I completely agree with that. With everything y'all said. Yeah, like customizability is super important. And games are getting there. Like I know The Last of Us 2 had a lot of customized accessibility options, like right from the beginning, and they were all really great. And I know, like yes, like subtitles are one thing, right? But I think Maria mentioned it, like closed captions, where it describes, like, or it shows you what's happening. I think Last of Us 2 does it, and the only one other example that I know is either Half-Life or Half-Life 2. And it gives you like everything that's happening, like, oh, like enemy said this. But I think Last of Us 2 does it better, where it has like a little arrow pointing wherever the sound is coming from. And for anyone at home, like those are perfect examples of like for it's for making, I guess, making audio accessible, but more so making the game accessible overall. So whatever audio cues you may have, they're accessible to everyone in game. Yeah, go for it.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think a lot of games too, like I was talking about like having the little visual on the screen too to show where, like, you know, like if you're playing a game and you're getting like shot at from somewhere and like you can't really, you know, if you can't really hear where it's coming from, those are all like games that'll like put like a little, like, again, a little flash of light, like, okay, it's coming from here, it's coming, and then you'll see it on your screen, and that helps like a lot. You know, I think that really is super important to like and it'll be there by default, I think, too, with a lot of these games. So I think they like already think about that accessibility like from the get-go.
Yeah, I'm curious how accessibility will evolve for audio. Yeah,
It would be great.
I'm getting ideas from everything you're saying. It's like maybe there should be a disclaimer on a toggle, like for, I don't know, this game has chairs being dragged like through the floor, and you turn those off or whatever.
Yeah, I feel like the more you have, the better. I mean, it can be overwhelming, right? But if someone does really need something to be quieter, like I've definitely had experiences or played games where I'm like, that's really loud, and then I can't put it down. Or it's like, put all the sound effects down, and I'm like, but I don't want to. So yeah, I've had that experience, because yeah, everyone's different, right? Cool. It's raining over here. You might hear it. It's pretty intense. Cool. So then I guess we'll jump over to the next one. Are there any genres or themes that you would like to explore in games through your music or sound design?
I think it would just I don't know. I really enjoy like learning about different types of music, especially like, when I'm composing, depending on what like required to compose. But I've always wanted to compose like a big orchestral score, which, you know, I've done little bits here and there, but definitely with like Just Cause and everything. But I would like really love to work on more stuff like that. I love all the moving parts and everything. I love orchestration. It's really like, you know, where my heart is with like musical writing. So I think that would be a lot of fun to get to explore that.
For me, I'm gonna go the opposite way. I'm very, very interested in learning how to compose lo-fi, because I think that I just hear it and I just think it's so cool, it's so interesting, and I have never done anything like that before. And it's one of the things I really like about video games, that you can write and learn to write different genres of music and use different techniques. So that is the one that I'm looking forward to.
I think that But yeah, definitely one of the best parts of working in games is that you get to do so many different things and experiment with so many different types of music, genres, and styles. But I've been lately wanting to join some team working on a horror game. I don't play horror games myself. I can't stand them. But the idea of creating that kind of soundscape where sounds and music blend so seamlessly, it just fascinates me. Like I just want to start now. Let's begin this project.
I would really love to work in a soundtrack for a game that involves mainly acoustic instruments that you can find maybe around someone's house, like something sort of like Santa Olaya is doing, but even smaller, like without any orchestra involved, like something very acoustic, very minimal.
Like found sounds, stuff like you could just find. Like that sounds really cool.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Cool. And this is our final question that I'm gonna ask, but y'all can ask each other questions if you'd like. What sage advice would you give yourself right before you broke into the industry? Or I guess what advice? Maybe not yourself, right? Yourself or anyone really. It's super broad. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's all good. I would definitely say like a couple things. I think the biggest one is know your worth. Like, you know, really like really believe in yourself. Really like know that, you know, you are bringing a lot of something unique to any team that you work with. So like really understand that, know your worth. Be able to communicate with people is really important. Being able to collaborate, and you know, just like, you know, keep at it. I know it sounds like kind of cliche, but like, you know, keep at it. Like you're not gonna get there overnight. It's gonna take time. You know, you got to start small. You got to start somewhere, but keep meeting people. Just be cool, make friends. Keep practicing. Learn as much as you can. Learn from others. I'd say like teach others too if you can. If you can, like, you know, get out there and like teach a class. It's a great way to like meet people and like, you know, bring back your experience to help out others. But yeah, definitely, you know, definitely just like keep at it, you know, just do something that, you know, for your career, for your dream every day, even if it's like one small thing is really important. I think that's everything I had. So.
Yeah, I definitely connect with all of that. I think those are great points. I, in the personal experience level, connect, especially with the first one, with the believe in yourself. It took me great courage and 2 years to go to the first game dev meeting. I was very scared. I thought I was going to feel lonely, and I was certain I was going to be the only woman, and I was just terrified. And then I just had a blast. I spent 5 minutes there, and I decided to stay forever. And it was just a matter of courage. So I guess I would go to myself and be like, hey, be brave, believe in yourself, and just, it's a first step. You will do it, you can do it.
I agree with all of that. You know, I would say, you know, don't get discouraged. It's hard, but it will be worth it. Write as much music as you can, step out of your comfort zone, be ready to meet people, but especially be ready. It's one of the big ones for me. And for me, that means be ready to have people discover you. But I don't know if that's the correct word, but, you know, have a website, have all links to examples of your music, have business cards ready, you know, have all your social media connected and everything in place. Have, you know, PayPal, you know, have everything done so that when the opportunity is just knocking at the door, you're all ready, and you don't have to spend a lot of time just trying to see what to do, because that's what might cost you some work and some time. So if you're ready from the beginning, then the next thing you need to do is just go out and meet people and just keep at it.
I'd say that saying where you're at now is already a good place to start, like doing this, and you don't need to get the best tools available, the best and most expensive, even if some people are like, yeah, you need the better, like this is the hardware you need, this is the software you need. No, just you can do so much with so little, and the most important thing is to really convey the message behind the game, uh, like be able to communicate. And I mean, it's not only communication between you and the team, it's also communication between the game and the players. So that's like the main thing.
All right, for sure. Thank you so much. So that wraps up all of our questions. Does anyone else have anything to add? Or oh
I
yeah,
would
go.
like to add a tiny thing. As our panel shows, most of the people in game audio come from different backgrounds, from maybe just playing music with their bands or being a classical music player. And I think that all of that experience is very valuable. It's not like you wasted your time doing something other than that, and now you won't transfer that knowledge and that music on this new task that you are tackling. I think that everything you've done, all of your experience will show in your production as a game composer.
Yeah,
Totally
this
agree.
reminds me of like, I don't know, there's this band called Swans, which I like very much, and Michael Gira, who is one of the founders of that band, used to work in construction, and that sort of shaped the sound of their band. So yeah, like you're saying, it's like anything from your background can help, like the output. Um, yeah.
Anyone else? For sure. Oh yeah, go for it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, I definitely agree with like, like really incorporating your backgrounds into what you do. And just like keep in mind again, like, when you're working in the games industry, it's, not just like an industry, it's a community too. So I said before, like know your worth and everything, that's really important. I feel like a lot of like the best things I've ever done for myself in my career again was like trying to share my knowledge and getting out there and teaching. I would teach classes with playcrafting. I haven't done it in a while, but I was writing in a blog on my website quite a bit and updating and sharing like a lot of knowledge and stuff. And now I am a teacher. So I think that really helps you out so much. And, you have something you can talk about, like, you have something you could teach. So really like get out there. And it's scary, it's nerve-wracking, but to get out there in front of like a bunch of people and be able to teach or like give a talk or something is just it's so cool because you have a story to tell. So just get out there and do it. Make it part of your career and everything.
Exactly. I just want to add that you need to know that what you bring to the table is important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Like I absolutely agree. And this is my second talk ever. Like the first one I did was for Women Game Jam. Yeah, and it's so like overwhelming, but at the same time like awesome because I mean you invited me, and I feel like I'm not worthy of this panel, and all. It's like that's insecurities talking. I still had to convince myself that I belong in this industry, and it's awesome that this panel is happening and you're giving voice to so many people who maybe feel like that and they have so much to share, with the world and the gaming industry.
everyone here is absolutely worthy of doing this talk. You're all awesome. And, you know, you're out there watching, you're worthy of doing a talk too. So keep that in mind. I'm like pointing at the audience, like, you can do it, you know?
Yeah, like I completely agree. All of y'all are amazing. I've learned a lot. And thank you so much. I'm pretty sure everyone else has learned a bunch too. Whoever's watching at home. Yeah, I think this will be great to reference later as well. Like for me, like if once I jump back into audio and start doing stuff there, I think that'll be great. But yeah, is there any? Do you want to plug yourselves in really quick, and then we can wrap up? Just like any social media, check out my website, check out my music.
Yeah, if I'm pretty much just AC Menace, AC MENES, everywhere online, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, my website. If you just search that, that should all pop up. So, yeah. Oh, and my orchestra, the Montclair Gamer Symphony Orchestra. Once this is all over, whenever that will be, hopefully we'll be doing more concerts. We are doing a virtual concert sometime early next year as well, so there's that as well.
For me, it's Majo Felix, MAJO Felix.com. I'm like that on Twitter as well. And Instagram is Majo Felix Music. So that's where you can find me.
I'm Hasmin Jalito everywhere. If you search my name, you will find my Bandcamp as well. And definitely check out Women Game Jam if you are excited about going to some game jams next year.
Yeah, I'm Sota Pianola. It's Sota with C or Z, depending where you're from. And I'm Sota Pianola almost everywhere, Instagram, Twitter, and feel free to reach out and ask any sort of questions you have regarding game audio or content development. And also, if you are a woman in game audio and you are from Latin America, Hasmin and I are running we have a Twitter thread that we started, and we want to get as many Latin American women from video games there, so from game audio. It's so many stuff. Sorry. Yeah. But yeah. And introduce yourself. I mean, if you think that nobody knows you and they should know you, just DM us and we'll talk to you.
I couldn't agree more with that. No, it's definitely important to reach out to people. So I'll put it out there too. If anyone ever wants to reach out, like, go for it. I'm always happy to help people out and help people get started and all that good stuff. So.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Yes, feel free to follow. You should follow them. They're amazing people. And if we'll probably like add your social media somewhere. I think we posted it up on Twitter, but I mean, we'll share it the day of the event as well. And yeah, if y'all have any questions or want to get in contact with them through us, y'all can do that too. Yeah, this has been really amazing wealth of knowledge. I thank you so much. Y'all have been amazing. I'm so glad my internet's worked this entire time. I know we went over like an hour, but I hope it was good for y'all as well.
Thank you for the invitation, Jonathan.
Yeah.
It was awesome, and thank you all. It was so great to meet you and talk with you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks so much for the opportunity. You're all awesome.